There's a lot of concern about the ocean these days. Rising temperatures are causing marine heat waves, which can harm coral reefs and disrupt ecosystems. Also, the ocean is absorbing a lot of the excess CO2 in the atmosphere, which is making the water more acidic and affecting sea life. Overfishing, pollution, and plastic waste are huge issues too, and they all impact marine biodiversity and the health of ocean habitats. Biodiversity in the ocean is facing a real crisis. Warming temperatures are stressing marine species, especially coral reefs, which are highly sensitive to heat. Coral reefs are critical ecosystems. They support about 25% of all marine life. When water gets too warm, corals experience bleaching, a process where they expel the algae that give them color and energy, leaving them vulnerable to disease and death. The overall loss of coral reefs reduces habitat for thousands of species that rely on them for food and shelter. Climate change also alters ocean currents and nutrient flows, impacting migration patterns and reproduction for many marine species. Combine that with pollution and plastic waste, which can harm or kill sea creatures, and overfishing that depletes fish populations faster than they can recover. And you have a mix of pressures that threaten ocean biodiversity on a massive scale. In short, the health of coral reefs and overall marine biodiversity are both in serious trouble due to human activities and climate impacts. Scientists are worried because the damage could reach a tipping point where it becomes very hard to reverse. Coral reefs are built by tiny marine animals called coral polyps. These polyps are soft-bodied creatures that live in colonies. Each polyp secretes a hard calcium carbonate skeleton around itself as it grows, which forms the structure of the reef. Over generations, as polyps die, new polyps grow on top of the old skeletons, creating layers upon layers of limestone that eventually become massive reef structures. Corals also have a unique partnership with algae called zooxanthellae, which live inside their tissues. These algae use sunlight to produce energy through photosynthesis, providing up to 90% of the energy that corals need. In return, the algae get a safe home and access to the waste nutrients from the coral. So coral reefs are essentially massive, slow-growing living rocks formed over hundreds to thousands of years by the growth and death of these tiny coral polyps. They thrive best in warm, shallow, and clear waters, where sunlight can reach the algae that live within them. The beautiful colors of corals come mainly from the zooxanthellae algae living inside their tissues. These algae contain pigments that can vary, giving corals shades of green, yellow, blue, red, and brown, depending on the specific types of algae present and the conditions in the environment. Corals can also produce their own pigments, especially when they're under stress. These pigments act as a sort of sunscreen to protect the corals from intense sunlight, giving them bright colors like pink, purple, and blue. So the color of a coral is a mix of the natural pigments from the algae and the coral's own response to light and stress. When corals experience bleaching due to stress, like heat, they expel their algae, and the loss of this pigment leaves the coral looking white. If the corals can recover and take in new algae, they may regain their colors. Otherwise, they stay bleached, which often leads to their death. Corals are fascinating because they're animals, plants, and rock builders all at once. They're actually related to jellyfish and sea anemones, and they have stinging cells in their tentacles to catch tiny prey like plankton. Corals can reproduce in two ways, sexually and asexually. Sexual reproduction happens during a massive event called coral spawning, where colonies release eggs and sperm into the water simultaneously. This usually happens just once a year and is timed by the lunar cycle. When the eggs and sperm meet, they form larvae that eventually settle on a surface and start new coral colonies. Asexual reproduction, on the other hand, happens when pieces of coral break off due to storms or waves. These fragments can grow into new, genetically identical colonies, which helps the reef expand. Coral reefs also act as natural barriers, protecting coastlines from waves, storms, and erosion. This helps safeguard coastal ecosystems and communities, providing a buffer that reduces storm damage. Reefs support immense biodiversity by creating complex structures that offer habitat and shelter for fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and many other species. They're extremely sensitive though. Even small changes in water temperature, pollution levels, or sunlight can disrupt their balance, making them vulnerable to bleaching and disease. Climate change, pollution, overfishing, and coastal development are all putting coral reefs at risk. Coral reefs are often called the rainforests of the sea because of their incredible biodiversity. Even though they cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, they support about 25% of all marine species. The complex, three-dimensional structure of reefs provides food, shelter, and breeding grounds for thousands of species, from fish and crustaceans to mollusks and sponges. Reefs also play a huge role in local economies, particularly in tourism and fishing. Millions of people worldwide rely on reefs for food, jobs, and coastal protection. Coral reefs attract tourists for snorkeling and diving, creating jobs and boosting local businesses. Many medicines, including painkillers and treatments for cancer and infections, are being developed from compounds found in coral reef organisms. Interestingly, coral reefs also have a natural ability to protect themselves to some extent. When healthy, reefs can naturally recover from certain disturbances, like storms, through their reproduction and growth. However, this resilience only works within limits. If the reefs face too many stressors at once, their recovery is far slower or may not happen at all. Coral reefs are truly remarkable ecosystems. They're primarily found in tropical and subtropical waters, where temperatures are warm, sunlight is plentiful, and water clarity is high. These conditions are crucial because the algae living inside the coral tissues need sunlight for photosynthesis, which provides energy to the corals. Coral reefs form in different types and shapes, with the main types being fringing reefs, barrier reefs, and atolls. Fringing reefs grow close to shorelines. Barrier reefs run parallel to the coast but are separated by deeper water, and atolls are ring-shaped reefs that form around submerged islands. One of the most famous coral reef systems is the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. It's the largest reef system in the world, stretching over 1,400 miles. Coral reefs like this one are hotspots for scientific research, especially in studying the impacts of climate change on marine ecosystems. Reefs also serve as natural wave barriers that protect coastlines from erosion and reduce the impact of storms. This protection is especially valuable for communities in coastal areas prone to hurricanes or cyclones, as the reefs absorb wave energy and act as a buffer against storm surges. Coral reefs are incredibly delicate, though. They're facing threats not only from rising sea temperatures, which cause bleaching, but also from ocean acidification, which weakens their calcium carbonate skeletons. Pollution, especially from agricultural runoff, introduces harmful nutrients and chemicals into the water, promoting algal growth that can smother corals. Human activities like coastal development, tourism, and certain fishing practices also add pressure to these ecosystems. The coral reef system is a vast, interconnected network of coral colonies and marine species. It thrives primarily in warm, shallow waters near coastlines, especially in regions like the Caribbean, the Indo-Pacific, and the Coral Triangle, a region covering parts of Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Each reef within the system is made up of different species of coral that build complex, three-dimensional structures over centuries, creating an intricate habitat for marine life. This system is essential for marine biodiversity, as coral reefs provide habitat, food, and nursery grounds for about a quarter of all marine species, from colorful fish and sea turtles to invertebrates like sponges, sea stars, and sea urchins. The complexity of the reef structures offers protection and hiding spots, which are crucial for smaller species trying to avoid predators. The health of coral reefs is tightly linked to ocean conditions. For example, reefs depend on stable, low-nutrient environments to flourish, as too many nutrients in the water can lead to harmful algal blooms that block sunlight and disrupt the balance. Ocean currents also play a significant role in dispersing coral larvae, which is vital for reef growth and connectivity, allowing new reefs to form and existing ones to expand. One of the most impressive aspects of coral reefs is how they support entire ecosystems beyond the reefs themselves. Many open water fish species visit reefs for feeding or breeding, and migratory species like sharks, rays, and certain fish rely on the reef systems as part of their life cycles. However, the coral reef system is highly vulnerable to human and environmental pressures. Ocean warming, for example, can cause coral bleaching on a mass scale, as seen in recent events that affected the Great Barrier Reef. Reefs are also sensitive to even slight changes in water chemistry, especially from ocean acidification due to increased CO2 levels, which reduces the amount of calcium carbonate available to form their skeletons. This vast network, which took millions of years to build, could collapse within a few decades if these stressors continue to worsen. Scientists are working on coral restoration and protection efforts to help mitigate these threats and preserve the reefs for future generations. Coral reef systems are some of the most intricate and diverse ecosystems on Earth, stretching across tropical and subtropical oceans. They're structured in such a way that each part of the reef serves a specific role in supporting marine life. The foundation of the reef is formed by hard corals, which secrete calcium carbonate and create a rigid structure. These corals, along with soft corals, sponges, and seaweeds, create a layered, maze-like environment where fish and other marine organisms can hide, feed, and breed. Each coral reef system has distinct zones, such as the reef crest, which faces the open ocean and absorbs the brunt of wave energy, and the reef slope, where the corals grow downwards in deeper water. Different types of corals and marine species inhabit each zone, adapted to its specific light and wave conditions. Fish, for example, often live closer to the reef crest, while sponges and other filter feeders prefer the calmer waters of the reef slope. Coral reef systems are also vital for nutrient cycling. Corals and algae in the reef system are incredibly efficient at recycling nutrients, making it possible to sustain high productivity in otherwise nutrient-poor waters. The coral polyps capture plankton and other microscopic organisms from the water, while fish and other marine life contribute nutrients through their waste, creating a balanced, self-sustaining ecosystem. One important yet often overlooked feature is the relationship between coral reefs and surrounding seagrass beds and mangroves. These nearby ecosystems act as nurseries for many reef fish, allowing juvenile fish to grow and gain protection before moving out to the reef. Mangroves, in particular, serve as coastal buffers, reducing the amount of sediment and pollutants that reach the reefs, which helps maintain clearer water. In addition to their environmental role, coral reefs provide invaluable resources and protection for humans. They help protect shorelines from erosion and storm surges by breaking up wave energy, and they support tourism, which provides economic benefits for many coastal communities. Coral reefs are also a promising source for bioprospecting, as their diverse species produce unique compounds that have potential uses in medicine, from anti-inflammatory and antibacterial agents to treatments for diseases like cancer. Unfortunately, the interconnectedness of coral reef systems means that disturbances can have ripple effects. For instance, damage to nearby mangroves or seagrass beds can reduce fish populations on the reef, while pollution, particularly from agricultural runoff, can cause algal blooms that smother corals. Efforts to protect and restore coral reefs often involve addressing these external threats as well. As healthy reef systems are supported by their broader coastal environment, coral reefs are not only essential for marine life, but also for global health and climate stability. Here are some deeper aspects of coral reefs and their significance. One of the critical roles coral reefs play is in carbon storage. Healthy coral reefs can sequester carbon, helping to mitigate the effects of climate change. However, when reefs are stressed or damaged, they can release stored carbon back into the atmosphere, which contributes to further climate change. The symbiotic relationship between corals and zooxanthellae is particularly fascinating. These algae provide energy through photosynthesis, which is crucial for the coral's growth and survival. In return, the corals provide the algae with a protected environment and access to sunlight. This relationship is so important that when corals are stressed by factors like increased temperature or pollution, they expel their zooxanthellae, leading to coral bleaching. If the stress continues, the corals may die. Coral reef systems also exhibit remarkable adaptability. Some coral species are more resilient than others and can tolerate higher temperatures or lower light conditions. Scientists are researching these resilient species to understand how they might be used in restoration efforts. There are also experiments underway to breed corals in nurseries and transplant them onto damaged reefs to help speed up recovery. Another fascinating aspect is the diverse feeding strategies found among reef organisms. Some corals are herbivorous, consuming algae and plant material, while others are carnivorous, capturing plankton and small fish with their stinging tentacles. This diversity allows for complex food webs within the reef system, with different species playing specific roles in maintaining ecological balance. Additionally, coral reefs have cultural significance for many coastal communities. They are often integral to local traditions, lifestyles, and economies. Indigenous peoples and local communities rely on reefs for food, income, and cultural identity, making their conservation crucial not just for biodiversity, but also for preserving human heritage. In terms of conservation, there are various strategies being implemented globally. Marine protected areas, MPAs, are established to limit human activities and allow ecosystems to recover. These areas often lead to increased fish populations and healthier reefs. Scientists are also exploring assisted evolution, which involves selectively breeding corals that are more resilient to stressors like warming waters and diseases. Public awareness and community engagement are vital for coral reef conservation. Educating people about the importance of reefs and the threats they face can lead to better stewardship of these ecosystems. Citizen science programs allow individuals to participate in monitoring and protecting local reefs, fostering a sense of responsibility and connection to these environments. Despite the challenges facing coral reefs, ongoing research and conservation efforts continue to explore innovative ways to protect and restore these vital ecosystems. Scientists remain hopeful that with proper care and sustainable practices, some reefs can adapt and survive in a changing climate. Coral reefs are incredibly complex systems with many interesting facets. One key area of interest is the diverse array of species that inhabit coral reefs. Approximately 1 million marine species are estimated to be associated with coral reefs, making them one of the most biologically diverse ecosystems on the planet. The fish species found in coral reefs can be categorized into various groups based on their roles in the ecosystem. Herbivorous fish, like parrotfish and surgeonfish, help control algal growth by grazing on algae. This is crucial because excessive algae can smother corals and hinder their growth. Carnivorous fish, like groupers and snapper, help maintain the balance of the ecosystem by controlling populations of smaller fish and invertebrates. In addition to their ecological roles, many of these species have unique adaptations that allow them to thrive in the reef environment. For example, some fish have specialized body shapes and colors for camouflage, while others have developed symbiotic relationships with specific coral species or other reef inhabitants. Anemone fish, or clownfish, have a mutualistic relationship with sea anemones, finding protection among the anemone's stinging tentacles while providing the anemone with nutrients from their waste. Coral reefs are also crucial for fisheries. They provide a nursery habitat for many commercially important fish species, which spend their juvenile stages in the protective environment of the reef before moving to deeper waters as adults. This connection means that the health of coral reefs directly impacts global fish stocks and the livelihoods of millions of people who depend on fishing. One exciting area of research is the use of technology in coral reef conservation. Scientists are employing underwater drones and remote sensing technologies to monitor reef health, assess coral bleaching events, and track fish populations. These tools can provide valuable data over large areas, helping researchers identify changes and threats to coral reefs in real time. Another innovative approach is the development of coral farming and restoration techniques. Coral nurseries are established where scientists can grow corals in a controlled environment before transplanting them back onto damaged reefs. This method allows for the cultivation of resilient coral species and even hybrid corals that may better withstand changing ocean conditions. There are also ongoing efforts to understand the genetics of corals. By studying the genetic makeup of various coral species, researchers aim to identify traits that confer resilience to stressors such as temperature increases, disease, and ocean acidification. This knowledge can inform breeding programs that focus on enhancing the survival of corals in the wild. Additionally, understanding how climate change impacts coral reefs is crucial. As global temperatures rise, ocean temperatures also increase, leading to coral bleaching and habitat degradation. Ocean acidification, caused by higher levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere dissolving into the ocean, affects coral calcification, making it more difficult for corals to build their skeletons. Monitoring these changes and understanding their long-term effects are vital for developing effective conservation strategies. Lastly, addressing human-induced pressures is essential for coral reef health. Sustainable fishing practices, reducing pollution, and minimizing coastal development can help alleviate stress on these ecosystems. Engaging local communities in conservation efforts and promoting sustainable tourism can also support the health of reefs while providing economic benefits. Overall, the future of coral reefs depends on a combination of science, community engagement, and global action to combat climate change. By promoting awareness and fostering collaboration among scientists, policymakers, and local communities, we can work toward the preservation and restoration of these vital ecosystems. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more content, and leave a comment below. See you next time.